Hey YouTubers, this is the second episode. After about a week, you will see the changes what happened that week, and today is about cycling the tank. So it will be heavy on chemistry. So better to try to remember what you studied in your school, but let's first make a short recap. First thing, my advice is that you start putting the sand and then you put the rock on top. This will allow the rock to sit well inside the sand, not to scratch the aquarium glass from the bottom. Plus, it will keep it down. And then you add the water. For not to create a cloud from the sand, what you do, either you pour the water on the rock so that it goes down softly, or you put a plate on the floor. Depends if you don't have so many rocks. You put a plate and then you pour the water on the plate so that it goes softly on the sand and the sand doesn't really create a cloud inside. So that's about the sand. I've installed the lights, and these are special lights for the aquarium. Actually, this is radium, and it can be programmed so that it like simulates the sunrise, sunset, and then moonlight at night. Some fish get panic when it's too dark, and sometimes they can jump from the aquarium out, and then you see them on the floor. But with the moonlight, this should keep them happy. I've installed a couple of what we call, a thermometer. The optimum temperature is 76, 78 Fahrenheit, or around 26.5 Celsius. These are power heads. I'll show you from here. Power head is basically like a fan that pushes the water. I've installed two. And the power head basically is creating a current inside. Any corals would like to have a current because that's how you push the planktons, the food, back to the coral. Coral can never go and hunt. The food should come to the coral, and this current done by these power heads, that's one and that's two, and you can re-angle them, and this will make the corals move with the flow. I've put a couple of what we call cleaning crew. This is actually a crab, but inside a shell. Probably the guy is sleeping. There is a shrimp. I don't know if you can see his mustache. He's a bit shy, so he doesn't come very often. So, he is coming. He heard us. So this cleaning crew, basically what they do, can you see him? What they do, they eat the algae. They try to clean the tank. So you start to see some algae bloom, which is perfectly fine. It shows that the tank is cycling nicely. There are also a couple of snails, but they like to bury themselves in the sand. So that's it basically. And then let's move to some chemistry and what we need to do when cycling the tank. So, if you have been paying attention to Walter White's chemistry class, you would have known by now that any organic compound needs to have carbon and hydrogen. And there are several forms of that. So you have the methane, which is CH4. You have the ethane, becomes more complex, C2H6. And then it can become more complex with something like what you need to produce to be able to live, glucose, C2H12O6. The plants, for example, to produce the glucose, as you know, with the chlorophyll and light, they consume the carbon dioxide, and that's their source of carbon, and the water, which is the source of hydrogen, to create the glucose and then release oxygen. And that's how the plants do this form. So any other living creature will need carbon, will need hydrogen, and extract them from anywhere in their environment to come to the organic compound that will make them grow, and there will be other substances released as a result. So when we come to our aquarium, you will have basically the main thing that comes in the waste of the fish, their pipi and caca, or excess food that is like broken down, or dead organisms, could be dead bacteria or dead anything, will become an ammonia. The ammonia is NH3, nitrogen and hydrogen, and you will see this is rising in the week 1. You have dead bacteria that came with the live rock from transportation. You have maybe some dead organisms. sometimes to kick off this cycle, you need to produce some food, which is called phantom feeding. You produce ammonia and then it starts growing. It starts going down when the bacteria starts to consume this NH3 to create nitrite, which is the NO2. And you'll find that from the second week or the third week. The speed depends on your tank, depends on how much bacteria you have and the efficiency of it. From week 3 to 4, you will find a reduction in the nitrite because the other form of bacteria are consuming the nitrite into and making it nitrate. Nitrate basically is the less toxic material to the fish. So these two are actually toxic to the fish. So they basically can cause them to die. But the nitrite is less toxic. However, it can generate algae growth. Algae. So what we do, we need to reduce this nitrite. And this nitrite can be basically reduced with water changes. If there is no nitrite, if it's 0, you don't need any water changes basically. Because all this cycle is 0, 0, 0, then there is no need for that. But water changes basically to reduce the nitrite. What are the other forms or ways to reduce the nitrate? Back to the formula. When we have organic material and oxygen that's consumed, it releases carbon dioxide, nitrate after this long cycle, and some water. So we can reduce the organic by reducing the amount of food, excess food that we give to the fish, or by filtering any material that can be broken down and becomes ammonia that will lead to nitrate growth, or by things that will consume this nitrate. So when we have the macro algae, this will consume the nitrate, and then we have the anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria. So what's the difference between the aerobic bacteria and the anaerobic bacteria? Aerobic bacteria means it needs air. It needs air. And this is the bacteria that transforms the ammonia to nitrite and the nitrite to nitrate. Okay? The anaerobic bacteria, it doesn't live in places where there is oxygen. So what it does, it consumes the oxygen from the nitrate and then generates nitrogen. So it takes the oxygen molecules and then the nitrogen becomes gas, and you see these bubbles going up from your aquarium, and this is killing the nitrate and releasing nitrogen as gas. So where we find the anaerobic bacteria, or where we can grow it, basically in the deep sand of bed. So when there is no oxygen going to the bottom, this is where anaerobic bacteria grows, or in the live rock. If there are deep places where there is no access to oxygen, then the anaerobic bacteria grows there, or in the biopellet reactor that we have in our sump. So we try to reduce the reduce the nitrate by introducing or feeding the anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria needs to, so what we try to do is to take the oxygen from this nitrate. Anaerobic bacteria needs some food, of course, and needs some sort of carbon. Some aquarium keepers, they feed the carbon in a form of vinegar, rice, or sugar, and some actually, most of them, they feed them with vodka because vodka is basically ethanol, which is another organic compound that you can feed this bacteria so that it lives, and then it consumes the oxygen from the nitrate to generate the nitrogen as gas. And that's basically what you have. Most of the tanks will have loads of aerobic bacteria, very less on anaerobic if you have a shallow sand of bed or not so deep rocks. But this is what actually will help you reduce the nitrate efficiently. But the most effective way, or guaranteed, by growing the macroalgae to consume the nitrate in the sump instead of creating algae in your tank that will grow by consuming this nitrate. Back to the aquarium, and this is the sump. So This is the refugium where I keep the macroalgae. The macroalgae will absorb all the nitrates, and then if there is no more nutrition for the algae on top, then it won't grow here. The macroalgae will grow here. This is special light. Actually, you can see it in the reflection, probably. You see two components, red and purple and violet actually, and the mix is purple. And these are actually the two components that any plant needs to use with the chlorophyll. That's the light components they need in order to grow. And this actually can multiply in size by 6 times in a couple of months. So that's number one, to reduce the nitrate in the tank. The second thing is there, which is the biopellet reactor, and this reactor is like the home for the bacteria, where hopefully I can have some anaerobic bacteria growing in these little balls, and this is actually giving the carbon to the bacteria to grow, and then it feeds again the tank here, goes to the refugium to eat the nitrate, anything left, and then the pump takes it back to the main tank. And those cleanup crew, if it's the crab, the shrimp, or the snails, can eat whatever algae that grows in the blooming time when the nitrate is growing. And now what I will do, I will make a test for my aquarium, how much nitrate, ammonia, nitrite, and to try the pH of the water. Now let's see how the tank water is testing. First thing is the pH. This is a test kit, tests the pH, ammonia, nitrite and nitrate, and the pH, I think it shows that's the second in the line, so my tank pH is around 7.8. So I put some of the water here of the tank, and then you add these solutions to check the ammonia, pH, nitrite, nitrate. You just follow the instructions and then follow the guide. So it shows here, you see, so it's number 2, 7.8. If we come to the ammonia, here's the color, and probably it's the top one, I would say, which is 0 or could be very little ammonia. In the first week is almost past, so I would expect that I would be low in ammonia, which is great. Second thing is the nitrite, and let's see what color. Clearly I am 0. You see how light it is, so 0 nitrite, 0 ammonia, and the nitrate, great news, yellow, and I would actually expecting that to have almost 0 nitrate, because the live rock I've used was very mature, so I would expect to have loads of bacteria. I've added also yesterday, which I didn't tell you, a solution called ATM colony. This provides additional bacteria to help cycle in the tank very quickly. But why I felt that it's cycling quickly? Because I saw this algae blooming, which is a good sign that the tank is cycling and probably ready to add fish. So what I started to add with is the cleaning crew, probably in the coming week, which what people can say it's pretty quickly, but like not 4 weeks. But because I've added the ATM colony, the refugium from day one, the biopellet reactor from day one, very mature rocks, that's why it can be ready. So what I will add, I'll start adding 1 week, so 1 fish per week probably, but I'll keep you updated with the next one. We'll do another test before adding any fish, so that we make sure that none of these levels are high, so that the water is not harmful or toxic for the fish. And I hope this episode was useful. I know it was heavy in chemistry, but hopefully you'll enjoy it and keep following the next news, and you will see how the tank will evolve. See you next time. Bye-bye.